We're on.
Good evening and welcome to the Georgetown School Building Committee. This is the middle high school meeting. We're going to pass by the minutes and tackle those at the end of the meeting for now. There are no invoices this evening or correspondence. Is there any old business that you would like to bring up? No? Okay. All right, the first thing we want to do is discuss the district letter to MSBA about the drainage. Has that been taken care of?
Both those letters are in. I'll let Kyle, he can go through it, but both
Okay.
those letters were drafted. Courtney did a good job working with Carol. Information was all compiled, and both those letters went in this week.
Oh, good, because I know they were due this,
Yeah.
the end of the week, so that's great to get them in early.
A little bit early.
That's always
The
good.
important part of the drainage letter, let me just read the statement that they asked us to say. This is Carol's. We feel that through the work performed related to the site information collected, the design team has enough information to prepare a scope, budget, and schedule that includes a comprehensive solution to the existing site drainage issues without seeking additional feasibility study funding. That's what they wanted to get the town to sort
To
of swear
agree.
to.
Okay.
And then they'll allow it to proceed.
And the meeting in Boston, I think that's the one you participated in via conference call.
Right.
Basically, that resulted in them being satisfied with it. They just wanted something in writing to show that the group was satisfied with the
All right.
level of
And
completion.
we did itemize what additional work we had done since the fall. We didn't want to make it sound like we hadn't done anything more.
Right.
So, we did have, additional coordination meetings. We had some additional soils investigation that we could afford. You remember that was done. We got information from Gale Associates, who's doing the turf field, where they had done some boring, so there was a little bit more that we could say we had. We did find an existing conditions survey plan from the high school, and we did more design calculations that we shared with John Jump when we had that follow-up meeting. So we could enumerate those things to show them that, yes, we have done more than what we had back at the preliminary design phase. So,
All right, well, that's great, and I'm pleased that the letters are in and have been handled.
the second letter was on the special ed spaces in the building, and I think I mentioned last time that, when the Department of Education reviews these plans, they basically look for two things with the special ed spaces within a school: that they're distributed, that they're not all grouped together, and that they're quote-unquote in the flow of the school. And so there were a couple on the first floor that they felt, one, we should separate them because, as much as we can, we don't want to put them all together.
Was that in the office area?
It was near the office area, the former office area where the special ed department was, that's being relocated to the
Pearly.
Pearly building. So we were taking over that space and making it nice classroom space because it's on the outside of the building, it has windows, as opposed to being in the center of the building without windows. But because we had two spaces together, they said, could you split those up and move them? So we moved one upstairs and took a regular classroom and put it downstairs on the plan. So that plan's getting resubmitted with Carol's letter.
Okay.
And that should take care of that.
Are there underground oil tanks at the high school?
There is still one there. I don't know if it's
Does that
plural.
need to be removed, like when we do work there, or?
It needs to be removed anyways. There's sort of a requirement. I forget out exactly whose requirement it is, DEP's or something, about, taking out unused oil tanks. I guess it stayed there quite a while because there were maybe dual fuel burners.
I thought there was a time limitation as to how
There
long
is.
it could stay before you
Yeah.
have to remove it. You probably,
Well,
At
we
that
just
point.
went through a program that all the lights in the town buildings got replaced, and they should have figured that in to get that removed, because I know they removed the one at Pearly.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's in the driveway, the one at the high school near the loading dock, I believe, in that area there.
Yeah.
Learning dock. Up by the gym? Behind the
The
cafeteria?
loading- the
On the
old
other
loading
side of the
dock.
building,
Yeah.
okay.
Right in the ground? I think there's one out on the top of the pavement there.
There's like a chemical storage tank, on top of it.
Yeah, there's a tank,
There's a
isn't there?
generator, and
Yeah, there's a generator.
up there, that's in
generator.
it's in a housing.
Yeah, it may have a fuel tank with a generator, but the oil tank, right, it's not part of our scope, we're not anticipating it, but it should come out and Mike Anderson knows about that. I don't know exactly if he's got it in some kind of plan.
Yep.
To take it out. We brought it up a couple times with Mike.
Well, we ran into trouble with Pembroke with, so we don't want to, I think that's a good point, Pete, to bring it up now.
Yeah, well, we brought it up in the scope, you know, we enumerated the scope items with MSBA, and, you know, it wouldn't be MSBA who requires it to come out as part of this project. It would be, you know, like I said, DEP or another state agency that you're supposed to take out abandoned oil tanks.
Okay. We're supposed to review the status of the design and cost estimating. How is that going?
We'll find out, what is it, Monday? We got the drawings to the cost estimators over a week ago, and they're working on them now, both ours and Pat's.
We've been
and-
working with our estimator, they're working with their estimator, and then we're
Yeah.
meeting on Monday to do what is called a reconciliation.
Right.
To take a look at the whole thing and put it all together and get it ready to be submitted to MSBA, all of which has to be submitted by the 14th, which is part of the schematic submission that allows us to get into the March board meeting.
Oh, using Fogarty and RLB again?
Yes.
Fogarty's,
same
yeah,
two
he's the
estimating
estimator we
firms.
use, yeah,
Yep.
that's correct, yeah.
So that's underway. and
Yeah, that's
we'll
great.
have progress. The next building committee meeting is just before the 14th, I
11th,
believe.
right?
I've scheduled
It's the
it so
11th.
that it comes before that submission is due.
So you're pretty confident then everything's gonna be ready to go?
Right on target, yeah.
Yeah, we've got enough
Yeah.
time to work
Designs.
things out, you know, between now and then. If there are any issues or, you know, as Pat says, we're gonna reconcile. We not only just try to get the two estimates together, we make sure the full scope is in there, that they're not missing something or they're not misreading something.
Okay.
There was a very substantial meeting at DRA's office back a couple of weeks ago, when we
Mhm.
talked about, we had the heating engineer was there, going through all of the necessary adjustments and renovations that have to be made in conjunction with the new areas. So there was like I said, lengthy discussion with them on how to accomplish it in the most economical fashion. So that was the bulk of the meeting, and then there were other things talked about relative to, obviously, the internal modifications required in each one of the trade categories.
Okay. All right, is there anything else that you want to bring up at this
I
time?
think we're good.
I think we're all set, yeah?
All right, then I'm gonna go ahead and table the minutes from December 9th of 2013 and the January 14th minutes of 2014. Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Courtney, could you tell them we're gonna take a break? And we'll reconvene shortly with the, oh, she just turned it off. Good evening and welcome to the School Building Committee for the Pembroke Project. We're going to table the minutes for this evening. Our first item agenda is an invoice from Green Seal Environment for the amount of $10,065. We have co-chair Michelle Smith monitoring this meeting via phone. She'll be voting that way. Would anyone care to make a motion to approve the Green Seal invoice?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, Kat. Ellie, you have to go
Oh, yeah, we
around
have
the
to do
room with me on
names.
the phone.
Could you say your name and vote?
Tilly Evangelista, yes.
George Kaminsky, yes.
Ellie Sinkwitz, yes?
Jim Lacy, yes. Peter Durkee, yes.
Michelle Smith, yes.
Okay, so motion carries. The next item agenda that we're going to move some of the agenda items around. We're going to talk about the fire protection sub-bids that we had to
Rebid.
rebid, correct.
This rebid was caused by a bid protest from the original bid way back in, September. There was a protest, the second bidder, and there was a little confusion over the scope of work, and eventually it was determined and recommended by the Attorney General's office that this category be rebid. So we clarified the scope of work, we invited the same four pre-qualified contractors to bid and put out an amended set of documents. The bids came in, last week, on Wednesday. All four companies did bid. The bid results are in front of you. The numbers, unfortunately, are higher, somewhat significantly higher than they were back in September. But the scope is a little bit expanded from what they were bidding on back then. And the two items to look at here, there's a base contract amount, that's essentially the sprinkler work within the building. And then there's alternate number one, that's the area of confusion from last fall. That's basically the exterior water line work that goes from the driveway all around the building and into the building, and has some hydrants too. So it's a fair amount of water line work that is, proposed to be done by the fire protection contractor. Because that is also site work, Brate recommended, and we thought was a good idea, that we also get a proposal from the site work contractor that's on the job right now, RC&D. So we have some competition there and so, an option. Well, it turns out it was a very good option, but the low number, as you can see, is basically Cogswell doing the base building work, using his own alternate, comes up to $778,000. If we were to use the site work contractor's number, the next lowest number is a little bit higher than that, $779,000. So our recommendation is to award the job to Cogswell for the base bid amount and alternate number one for the amount of $778,000.
Are they the ones who had,
They protested.
they are the protest?
They came in second the first time.
Okay.
Right.
What was the original bid?
The second page shows that, George. The original bid for just the building was $412,700. So that's the amount that's in Brate's contract right now. So, we'll need to execute a change order for the difference between what's in his contract now and this higher amount. And the higher amount is essentially the difference between 778 and 412. You have to tweak it a little bit because Brate's entitled to raise his bonding amount too to cover
I
this.
think the difference, if my
So-
computation's right, it's 365.3 would be the change order to Brate plus, I've imputed about 1.5% because all he gets is bond cost, doesn't get a markup, and that would round off at about 370,000. But I think we would recommend that what we do is approve the 365.3 increase in the sprinkle price plus the cost of the bond, which will be approximately $4,000.
Does this come out of the discretionary fund?
What we've done with this, George, is we've tried to do one better than that. What we've done is, we've actually, we submitted, right now MSBA still has not given us the final decision on the fact that we've asked them to take the change order one, the 1,750,000, and put that in the bid computation, because we're so far under bid, so we wouldn't deplete the contingency.
Okay.
Well, since they took so long to do it, we've been chasing and screaming for it, because it allows us to get the pro pay updated, but it's taken so long, it's kind of worked to an advantage, because now we've said we want you to take the 370, and we'd like you to roll that into the bid. So we don't
It makes
touch
sense,
the
because it really
contingency.
should have been part of the
Right.
bid.
That's what it should have been.
Right.
So they
It shouldn't be a
they
change
haven't
order.
said no, and again, we have our fingers crossed. They said that as far as they were concerned, the 1,750,000, they were gonna roll into the bid amount. Now we're doing the same thing with this, and this actually even makes more sense, because it is truly part of the building. So if that all happens, then we have a contingency fund that we
That's
haven't
untouched.
touched,
Okay.
other than I think we did a fence for a few $1,000. but
7,000, yeah.
We'll have that in place for the balance of the job.
Hopefully, that's gonna work out
Yeah.
in our
Yeah,
favor.
right, yeah.
All right, so then what you're looking for is the committee
A
to
motion to
approve
award to Cogswell.
Yeah.
All right.
778.
for 778. Okay, so, would anyone care to make a motion to approve Cogswell as our fire protection sub-bidder in the amount of $778,000?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
We
let's
should
see,
probably add for the base bid amount plus alternate number one, just to be official.
okay, did you get that, Chuck? For the base bid? Okay. So let's go around and vote. Tilly? Yeah,
Can
say
I
your
ask
name?
a question
Oh,
first?
yes. Oh, I'm sorry, you should anyways.
What is the reason that we had to rebid it? They didn't like how it was bid before, or?
Right, they ultimately felt that the bidders weren't on equal footing, that one bidder was bidding on a certain scope of work, another bidder was bidding on a slightly different scope of work, a third, might have been bidding on something different.
So this alternate one, is that to supply water to the school?
Yes.
So that wasn't in any other plan anyplace else?
We had issued, at the time, we thought it wasn't in the fire protection bid and should not have been, and we issued an addendum to make it part of the site bid, but Brate, and other general bidders perhaps, relied on the fact that they believed it was part of the fire protection, and so they left it out. So in essence, there was a gap at bid time. When Brate's bid came in, nobody owned that work, as it turned out. That's why there's an increase now.
So
So-
it's our fault that they didn't see that it wasn't in the bid?
It was definitely a gray area, an area of confusion, and the way things are, the low bidder becomes the low bidder by being aggressive and being, taking risks. And he took a risk that his interpretation would prevail, and the Attorney General did see it his way, you might say. Yeah.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. Any other questions?
So, which number is the increase? I'd like to know that.
We didn't
How
actually.
much more are we paying
We
for
didn't
this?
show that on this sheet,
As I
Tilly,
said,
but
Tilly, it's
it-
365.3 plus roughly 1.5% for a bond, so it's 365.3. The change order rate's gonna be 365.3 plus roughly 1.5% for his bond, which is gonna take it to about 370,000.
Tilly, if
He
you turn the
unfortunately is not,
page,
he's not available right
you'll
now. We're
see the
gonna ask him for a
amount that's in
proposal.
the contract.
Way up here in the corner.
In the corner is 412,700. That was the low bidder back in September.
Right.
So that's what's in the contract currently. So the difference between 778 and 412,700 is what's gonna need to be added to the
Well,
contract.
that's substantial.
Yes, it is.
substantial.
Yes.
It is.
So isn't there any liability coverage for that mess up?
Well, it's a
Why does the
scope,
town have to pay for that?
it's a scope issue. As we said, it wasn't in the bid at the time, in essence, when Brate bid the job.
Why
So how
wasn't
was
it
the
in
bid
there?
package,
Because that's the way they interpreted the plans and specs. So
I know,
they
but
weren't
it wasn't
including it.
there.
The fire protection guy wasn't including it, so it needs to be added.
So it was an error though, wasn't it, on your setting up the
It's an
bid?
omission. It's an
Yeah.
omission, yes.
And there's no insurance to cover such things as
Well,
that?
it's not for that sort of thing, because as you said, in essence, the town wasn't paying for it before, and we're adding it to the scope of work, so it needs to be paid for by the owner.
so they were bidding on a project with no water to it?
Right, in essence.
One guy thought one guy had it,
Right.
the other guy thought
the other guy had it.
and as it turned out, there was enough ambiguity so that it was determined you had to rebid it because it looks like nobody had it.
Sometimes common sense doesn't work in public bidding,
So
Pete.
there could have been another general contractor that could have had a lower bid because he planned on putting water to the building.
Well,
Could have
now
been,
with-
but
Now with the gap that we
the,
had.
the difference we had was more
Yeah, there's
substantial
$2
than
million
that.
difference, you know.
Yeah, but that is an issue. That's,
Yeah.
you know, how we sort of look at it when
Okay.
we're evaluating bids. Yeah.
So to add putting this hose, all this
Water line
pipeline,
and
water
hydrants.
line, all the way around the building is $300,000.
Well, it's really $249,000.
200 for, just for that.
Yep, yep. That's
Yeah.
specifically what alternate number one is.
It'd be harder to drag a hose around
We
every
called-
time.
Yeah.
Tilly, we called each of the subs to double check what they had, you know,
You checked it.
include excavation, backfill, and, you know.
Wow.
Yep.
check.
No, I'm voting for it because I don't see any other way to do it, but,
We need
you know,
to.
we're kind of
isn't-
stuck in a hard rock and
Yes,
hard
we are.
place. So that's,
All right, I'll call for the vote then. Tilly?
yes.
George, yes.
Ellie, yes.
Jim, yes.
Peter, yes.
Michelle, yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You need to vote on a change order to Braid,
It needs to be a separate one?
Yeah.
Okay.
because that's a change order that's gonna go to Braid for, if my mathematics is correct, the 365.3.
365
365.3 plus roughly 1.5%.
plus the 1.5 a bond.
It's gonna end up at roughly
All right.
370,000.
So we need a motion to do we have a change order for this? Is it number 2?
It'll be change order number 2.
Change order number 2 in the amount of $365,300.
Oh, should we do the 1.5%?
Plus-
What is it?
Well, the problem is, Braid is not available at this point. He won't be back until next week, so I'm not sure what his bond cost is gonna be. My sense is it's gonna be less than 1.5%. We can say.
So no more
not
than
to ex-
one-
Why don't we say not to exceed 370,000?
Okay. Not, so, for,
Well,
a
370,000.
motion to
800.
accept change order number 2, authorizing $365,300,
Right.
not to exceed
To make it
370,000.
371,000, Kyle's computation at the
Okay,
1.5%.
371,000.
Right. My sense it's gonna be less than that, because I'm
Okay.
anticipating the bond will be less than 1%, but we're trying to obviously be on the conservative side.
All right,
So moved.
Oh, second.
all right. Tilly?
Yes.
Or does anyone else have any other questions? So this is for change order number 2.
Yes.
George, yes.
Ellie, yes.
Jim, yes.
Peter, yes.
Michelle, yes.
Okay. Motion carries.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would like us to vote on immediately?
Well, like I said, with the fields, I think we could proceed with your consensus if you don't take an official vote, but we certainly want to present that tonight and
Yes,
move along.
great. All right, then why don't we go through the other agenda items and we'll come up with the fields. So how about an update? Do you have anything you want
So
to?
as far as the construction is concerned, there are 2 major operations going on in the field, and a third one ready to get started. First one is obviously the foundations. The contractor, despite the weather, I was out there today, and it's a painful process. I mean, they're breaking out frost, pushing frost aside. They've got 4 ground heaters working out there full-time, covering everything else. We're being very careful with quality control. We have someone out there constantly monitoring compaction and breaking cylinders and monitoring concrete, and our guys out there with them. So it's a painful process, but they made very good progress to the point where they're a month ahead of where we anticipated they were gonna be with the foundation, because they're actually making good progress. They've got the A perimeter just about done. They've got the B perimeter just about completed.
They've gone around all the way to here. I think they're
Well,
about
they're not there yet. No, they're not there.
Here?
They
Right
put
there.
about right down where the last A line is, right there. Yeah, right, come back a little bit.
Yeah.
Right there, it's poured right to there. Yeah, right to that area.
The front door.
Yeah, and then, and they're working on the interior footings on that C section. They had to start A because B was where they had a mountain of material, they had to move it first. So despite the fact they started the A foundations first, the goal always was to start the steel erection in C, that's where the 3-story building is.
And they'll
So
still
they-
be able to do that?
And they're, yeah, they've got that perimeter footing done, and they're working on breaking out frost and pouring the interior footings, moving down toward the B area. So that's gone along pretty well, and the third item that is getting ready to start is we should see a crane on the job this week, and we should have steel on the job early next week. It's probably gonna be the first groundbreaking ceremony I've gone to on February the 11th, where there's actually steel on the job. So that'll be a new innovation, you know. But, and they're ready to start steel erection right after the early part of next week.
So
And
if they're a month ahead, does that mean they'll stop working Saturdays?
we don't know. That's their call. It's up to them. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's up to them. My sense is that there's still gonna be enough work ahead of
They're
them
going.
to stay up with the steel erection, because you wanna continue the steel erection. The goal is to do it in an unbroken set of activities. Otherwise, you're gonna pull the crane out, and then you have to bring them back in, and it's a cost to the contractor, not to us, but to him. So his goal is to obviously keep the foundations moving so that they can move in a continuous erection sequence. So, again, foundation's going well, steel is ready to get started. The other thing
Could I
that's-
interrupt just 1 minute?
Sure.
Speaking of steel, did we get a report from this Canadian steel that we're getting
Just
on
went
how
up,
it was?
he went up yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah, he went up yesterday.
So it's still in
He went up
process?
to look in, and again, it was a result as the conversation
Right.
went on. It was a result of something recently that had happened, where some of the steel that came out on, not our job, but on another particular job. It came out, it wasn't this fabricator, it came out to another job, and there were some cracked wells that were found on the job. Now, that means you're shipping it back, or you're doing
Right.
something in the field. So they just thought it was a good idea to go up and take a look, and nobody wants to spend any extra money, but it could have saved, a fairly substantial amount of time.
So we haven't gotten a report back on
No,
what he has seen? All right,
There'll be
that's
a-
all I wanted
yeah,
to know.
they'll be doing, I'm gonna guess in the next couple of weeks, we'll see something in writing, probably get something verbally before that,
Okay,
and we'll share it if there's an issue, but chances are, there won't be an issue. The track record of this firm is very, very good.
okay.
The other thing that's in operation out there is obviously we have a full-blown site work operation going on. We're still moving, we're obviously leveling out the site. That means removing dirt from one spot, putting it into another spot. Some of it's being moved from one spot and being put in place where it belongs on site, where the parking lots are and so forth. Some of the other material that's obviously organic and unacceptable is being moved over to the repository, which Doug will obviously explain in a while as to where this is going. But all of that is in full operation. They were moving material out there today. They were moving material on site, putting it in place, and that's a thankless effort because you're moving 2 feet of frost, because you can't backfill on top of frost. You're tearing out 2 feet of frost to be able to move material in place, and the frost stuff that's frozen, you leave it aside, and obviously when that thaws out later on in April or March, then you'll be moving that and putting that into place. So it's a real job managing materials on the site. But they're making good progress. We have our full-time monitoring individual there. He's very, very good, very detailed. If anybody wants to see his reports, Mike has all the reports here, very detailed. He monitors everything by the hour. He's out there with his little, sensors all over the place, so he's done a very good job. Jim Luke has been very, very responsive. He's coming out to the job again tomorrow. Every time we come out, we talk about issues that need to be touched up in a procedure that has to be, rectified or what have you, but it's been a very good team effort. And I must admit that, Brayt and his subcontractor, they're doing a real earnest job trying to keep it going. We have our automated wheel washing machine or vehicle washing machine in process today.
How's
It
that
was
working in
frozen up.
this cold? Oh, there
Well,
you
it was
go.
frozen up, so they got to
Yeah.
reheat it, they got heated water. They had some issues with I think the electrical inspector needed it grounded a little differently, so they were making arrangements for that. They have their water truck on site, but again, you're inclined not to do a lot of watering at this point, because when you water, what happens is you create nothing but slipping hazards. So you're really fighting a lot of different elements, but they're making good progress, they're making an honest effort, and with the cooperation of everybody out there, things are going pretty well.
All right. Does anyone have any questions about
What
construction?
about what time does Jim show up? How's that?
Tomorrow, Jim will be there. He'll be there first thing in the morning, because he's there for the meeting tomorrow. I won't be there. Chuck will be there with Pete.
Jim's only there once a week.
Yeah, he comes in
1 o'clock, did you?
No, once a week.
once a week, and he's indicated he won't be there necessarily every week. He'll be there weekly if it's possible, but once every other week. But he'll be there tomorrow, and usually gets there pretty early. He gets there because he wants to walk the whole job, and then he's ready for the meeting at 9:30.
He has a technician there, Tilly, who's there full-time.
Full-time, yeah.
Jim himself only shows up once a week or so.
Oh, I gotcha.
And the individual he has there full-time is the individual I pointed out is doing a very good job. If you want to take a look at a real well-done report with photos and everything else,
Yeah, I'd like to get over there.
take a look. And Mike's got copies right here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? I'm gonna put the field conversation off till the end. That way, if Jeff gets here, we can include him possibly in some of that. So why don't we move right to the Johnson
Okay.
update?
We were asked by the town to, as part of the agreement between the town and Mrs. Johnson, work out an arrangement whereby she could have a driveway and a parking spot kind of off of the town's access drive there, that land. And I guess the legal parts of the agreement are still being worked out. There's some kind of memo of understanding, as I understand it right now, between the two. And we'll talk about the construction of this in a minute, I guess. That's in the next decision. But in terms of the design of it, which we were asked to provide, Doug's worked on it here. But remember where we are in the big picture here, if we look. We're talking about our access drive. Her house is here, and right now, she currently drives like diagonally across the access drive. I'm sorry, it shows up here. So here's the access. Her driveway currently comes about like this, and sort of just dies out here. It kind of peters out.
Actually, the blues.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's her
all
driveway.
existing
This is the access
conditions,
road.
Oh.
That's her driveway, and it just kind of ends right there, and it's gravel. It's not paved. But what's being proposed is, because, our driveway is being paved with permeable pavement there, is to put a perpendicular parking spot, in essence, off of that, so that she would come in, from the access drive, not at the angle she does now, but, perpendicular to Elm Street, and then make a right turn into her parking area here, directly adjacent to her house. See, you can see where her car is parked here in this one. In lieu of that, the car would be parked, sort of more directly towards the house, completely off of the town's property. So this part of the driveway is really a parking area that's on her property, and then she'd have some kind of right to travel over. She could back out and drive out in the forward direction. It'd be much safer than trying to back onto Elm Street there. And the grading works. Her house is up a little bit from here, so that the driveway is sloped up a bit, and then this door is highlighted because we're showing that's the door they'd like to be able to have a handicap accessible ramp to, and with the grading done this way, it can be done pretty continuously. There's like 3% slope, and is that 5%, or is that 5%, that little piece?
Yep.
Again, we're only talking about inches, really,
Right.
to get up from here to there. And actually, both doors can be accessible. So there's a little bit of grading to accomplish that. I guess the proposal is that this would be bituminous pavement, regular pavement, Doug.
Yeah.
There's a question as to exactly, what happens, with that material. I guess it could be a concrete sort of stoop right there. At some point, it transitions to bituminous. And like I said, there's sort of, in concept, the design works. I guess we'd have to think about exactly, what materials go in and who builds this. The idea was we'd give this to Brait and get a price from them. I don't know if the town, would want to get any other prices or consider any other alternative ways of getting it done. But also, exactly what happens, it's a little sensitive working on somebody else on private property with a public contractor. There may be some details that need to be worked out as to, I guess, right now I'm not sure what is under there, if there are any gardens or grass areas, or, what gets restored, or that sort of thing. There's some flagstones, I guess, over here.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a patio out there between the two doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's some stone steps coming down from this door. You can't see it behind the car. They may be on a piece of granite or something,
Yeah.
I think, over there.
So you're gonna
Little
do
spot
the
to
front
get at that
door, you're not gonna do the back doors for handicap?
No, both these two doors, not this door.
They only-
These two
She
doors.
uses those two
They only
doors.
requested the central door.
Yeah.
The yellow,
That's the
green
one that
door
was
there,
most
yeah,
important.
that's the one they
This one
use.
is up a couple steps, and will continue to be up a couple steps.
So will you present this to Mike, because I'm assuming he needs to bring this before the
Yes.
Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen
that's sort of the next step, I guess, is
Okay.
we would deliver this to Mike, and he'd confer with the
and decide
town
what they want to
council
do.
and see where we go from here.
All right.
Because Brait's gonna give us a price, but he's definitely gonna want some assurances,
Right.
access onto the property,
Right.
insurance aspects. I mean, he's gonna be a little bit
Right.
apprehensive about that.
And that has to come from the selectmen.
And there'll be a
you
little
know,
bit
to
of a
work that out.
timing issue too.
Right.
You know, if she says, well, or the town agrees, yeah, we'd really like this done in a certain time frame, it may not work with Brate's schedule of when this is gonna get paved too. You know,
Right.
we have to think about that as well. So it's still a sensitive,
Yes, it is.
little negotiation there.
What would that cost about? Do you have an idea, what ballpark?
I haven't even, I'm seeing it for the first time, Tilly, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, you have some thought?
Oh, maybe it's gonna be to do all the work, earthwork, grading, paving, I don't know, under 10.
10,000. It's a little bit of fill you gotta bring in to lift it.
Very little,
Very low.
very little. It really just does come down, like you said, to materials. What are we gonna choose
May
to
be a
use?
proper subgrade, who knows what's in there now, or.
Right.
So they may have to dig down and bring in some good
Right.
material, yeah.
That central door, does that door open out?
There's a storm door and then it opens in, so the storm door opens out and,
And that's where the handicap ramp's gonna go?
yeah, it's not really a handicap ramp,
It's
it's
just a
just
ramp.
a walkway
Grading,
that works out at grade, less than 5%.
And the other door, the white door opens in?
Yeah, it looks that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why there are two different levels too, they look like they go into the same room, so somewhere in that room there must be a step.
Little
Yeah.
settler.
I think the floor. It's a little
Could be.
slam.
That's an old house.
Yeah, could
Do
be.
you have an age on it?
Well, it looks like this was a house and this was a
Yeah.
barn and then they built a
They
connector.
connected it. I
I think
think
there's a
you're
plaque
right.
on the front of it,
Right.
Tilly. I think
There
we have
is.
this,
Yeah.
on most of those houses, there's a plaque showing you
Yeah.
when they were built.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty old
It's up
house.
It is
there.
old, yes. And it's lovely inside. I saw it one time. All right, that's good. So you'll be taking care of bringing that to Mike,
We'll
so
get it to Mike.
we're all
yeah.
set. All right. I understand you're meeting tomorrow with the Elm Street engineers?
Yeah, Bayside, is it?
Yeah.
Bayside
Bayside.
Engineering, and our civil engineer will be there. Again, I think they're mainly talking about this driveway, right? Probably more than
Yes.
this point, but remember, when we did the drainage coming down this driveway, as part of this contract, we capped it off for now, because we didn't have a connection point as to where to
Right.
direct that water, so literally, we instructed the contractor to put covers on the catch basins for now. And I assume that's what we're gonna try to coordinate with Bayside, when we get together with them, is to figure out where is that drainage, where can it go, and how do we make the connection and work out, or at least start to work out some of those
Well,
details.
are we gonna be looking at buying an easement? The town?
I don't know if that's necessary.
We're hoping that we don't have to. Is there money still available for Elm Street? Remember how there was money for, to do work on Elm Street?
Well, actually, all of the money got absorbed into the contractor's price. There was some bubbles here and there for dollars. Now everything's
That
been
was back
consolidated.
in schematic
So
design,
anything we do
carried
there,
an allowance.
We have a
but
contingency,
eventually that got
Pete,
rolled in.
that
But
if we needed
only
it.
for
yeah.
the work on the project
Yeah.
as it connects to Elm Street.
Right.
Right.
not for
Right.
This Elm Street work.
So for your drainage pipe to connect into the Elm Street, you have money for that? But you
Yeah.
don't have money for anything else on Elm Street? No traffic,
No.
no lights, nothing?
No,
Like
no.
speed zone signs, nothing?
No, we figured that'd all be part of the Elm Street
Yeah.
improvement plan.
We have the school sign, we do have a crosswalk.
Yeah, we added a
Yeah.
crosswalk,
We do have
sidewalk.
a crosswalk.
Some minor improvements.
Crosswalk across Elm
Across
Street?
Elm
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the painted lines and the
Yeah.
curb cut on one side. We have that as part of the project.
Is there a cross-connection drain pipe to the right? Because I only know one to the left.
There's one, if you're looking at the driveway, there's a crossover pipe on the right. I'd have to look to with it, because right now the water comes down the hill and goes right around into the
Jansen
property
property?
next door.
That's the Jansen property, the Black Swan, whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a cross-connect that goes,
No, there's no pipe there, it just
No
drains
pipe?
there above
Surface.
ground, surface.
There's a cross connect further down
right, we
here.
saw that one, that
Right
was,
there.
right.
Yes.
But this water just flows across on the
Yeah,
surface.
it wants to go to the right.
It does go to the right.
Over here?
No, it
The-
goes
the
to
water.
the right and back around.
You mean this way?
No, the other right.
Oh,
No, it goes like this, it comes down the hill
Yeah.
and then goes back
To the
toward the
right.
sidewalk down the property toward that house
oh.
that's on.
So if we have pipe and catch basins underground, we're not gonna go back up to the surface, so we need to put,
You're not going up the hill either with those. They have to tie into Elm Street. So we have to, add catch basins to have that water tie in and make sure that, you know, we're not putting too much water down, you know. But right now, all the water's going back, I don't know what it's at 68 Rare, Elm Street. It's all going back that way.
And that goes towards the floodplains of Pembroke.
It doesn't go across the street.
Okay. I mean, it's two ways to put flow. If it goes to the right, it's gonna go towards Pembroke. If we put it up to the left, then that flows into the swamp in Beaufort Brook,
Yep.
which will cross
So
East
that's
Main.
what we're gonna talk about tomorrow, how we're gonna tie this in, and if we need any easements, or, if we're able to tie into what's existing. So,
When you talk about easements, George, you mean the town getting easements on private
Well,
property?
I could see, we wouldn't need an easement to put a pipe to a water source,
Across private property,
right,
yes, yeah, yeah.
you know.
So you're gonna have to stop what the water is flowing now, if it's going around somebody's property.
Well,
that's why I talked about this from the get-go,
Right.
on, you know, that the water, there's a ton of water that comes down that street, and there was no drainage, it needs to have drainage.
Right.
And now we're gonna have drainage with covers on it, they're not gonna be open until we do something with Elm Street and they have a place to tie in.
Right, right.
Because we did put the drainage in per Pete's recommendation. There's drainage now coming down the Pembroke driveway,
On either side.
but it's gonna be, at
That's
some
a
point, it's
curve.
gonna be connected to something.
Gotta go
so,
to
yeah,
somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
cause that water used to go across the street years ago, cause I remember,
It doesn't go across the street now, it goes.
not now.
It comes down,
You
it
can
just
see-
goes
yeah.
back
Well,
around.
how did they fix it so that it would go up and around, like?
Because
It's
the road is
natural,
sloped.
it just does it on its own.
Yeah,
There's a driveway there, a dirt driveway, and it goes down and curves around.
You can see the erosion
Yep.
on the right-hand side on the road.
Well, for years and years, it was, that used to be an ice skating area right across the street. And that water came from where? I think the hill.
I think it probably backed up from the swamp and back, probably.
Well, there was that crossover pipe that he shows on the map.
Right, right.
We
This
replaced that not too
right.
long ago. That was, it was a metal pipe collapsed,
Leads to flood,
A metal
swampy
pipe,
area
yeah.
back
and that's
here.
been replaced.
Yeah.
Do you have any calculations on how much water that's gonna collect in that?
Yeah, I'm sure our engineers do.
That would be excellent to
Yeah,
have.
exactly, yeah.
Are you gonna be there tomorrow also?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I think that's great. Let me just mention the groundbreaking ceremony. We're calling it a ceremony. And the good news is, it is still light at 5 o'clock now, so we will not be throwing dirt in the dark, and I'm very happy about that.
Are we throwing dirt or putting steel up?
Well,
Throwing snow
maybe we
around.
wanted dark to hide the steel going up. So, I'm assuming.
Chop that out, you know.
Right.
That's-
Chop it out, yeah.
We'll have to pick the right angle. I assume you'll all be there. Right.
Hopefully.
Okay, and then our meeting follows. We're gonna meet
Right,
right
the
in
same
Pembroke,
day.
Oh, yeah.
right
Oh,
after.
okay.
Right, we just, since we were having a meeting that day, we felt it would be easier, just meet here earlier. All right, so the last thing is the update on the fields. We held a meeting, Thursday with, it was open to the public. Several people from GAA came and were able to, share with the, with the architects what they would like to see. And I think that's what Carl is gonna present to
Yeah,
us
I'll
now.
let Doug present this, our landscape architect, Doug Morse. I think most of you know, he was at the meeting at the GAA with us, and we've been working on, trying to accommodate, working within a few restrictions of, the levels, the grades that are there, the light poles that are there, the, backstops, the limited wetlands and so forth, and to accommodate the amount of earth that we're moving out of the construction zone into this area here, so. Doug?
Yeah, the meeting went pretty well. There was a lot of good input from them. Some of the things that they were asking for, we've tried to provide to the best of our ability. And I think probably the biggest focus of all was the 3 fields up at the top, trying to get them to be on a level plane, so that you wouldn't have this drop off, which you do now. And it also allows for a little bit more space for the fields as well when you level them off. They did suggested, one of the things they did want to do was, there's an existing softball field here now. If we could provide them with a sizable baseball field here, their recommendation was to convert this softball field into a baseball field. So we're looking for a 225 down the sidelines here on this field, but it's just simply limitations wise, it's just not gonna work, but we could fit a 205-foot.
205.
So is that like a pony
Baseball
size?
field,
Is
yeah.
that like a pony size? You know, it's bigger
No,
than Little League.
it's
right?
gonna be, it's a little short for what they were really looking for.
Right.
Little
I think
League
it
is
was a big
225, so
something.
pony would be bigger.
Yeah.
And,
So,
and it's
but
a
what they
little
could
short.
do-
Why? Because
Well,
There's not enough room.
because, this is proposed and this is gonna be put in, so we only had so much limitation, we could move it down here.
yeah,
And then to clear out the trees up here and level it off, and the grade, the existing
Starts
grade now
dropping.
just drops down.
yeah.
So it's it's cost prohibitive to do it. You'd be removing all these trees, you'd be adding in all this fill, then you'd be chasing the grade further into the woods
Yeah.
to get it to back down to where it's going. So it really isn't worth stretching it out any further than what's there now.
But they were saying these are minor league, little league fields, and 205 is more than adequate for them. They're at like 180 now, or maybe 185.
It's 175 at American Legion. I'm not sure what it is there now. but-
Yeah, I think it's only 180
So-
there now or something, so
But
205 is an improvement.
Actually, where the foul poles are now, this one here is, I think it's 160 feet. This one I think is 180, so it's a little bit
So
lopsided.
it's definitely a lot better.
Yeah.
But obviously, when this field is open and there is no fence, then, this field is,
Fair game.
yeah.
But
So
you
I-
got trees between those two on the side.
Not anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Well, the
that's gone.
we asked the question, there's an opportunity there for one, to create a level area for play. And it
Right,
would just be for practice. Whether it be lacrosse, soccer, baseball, they could just use that space if we leveled it off. Two, by leveling it off, it actually provides a pretty decent area of fill. Because, as you know, the grades just drop down to the bottom of the hill here,
Mhm.
which pretty much mimics what the grade is down here. So, by leveling this off, it ends up being a 10-foot to 12-foot deep fill where we could store some of this on-site material.
Which actually makes us a little bit more comfortable, because just looking at the site today, we have to deposit the material that's coming off that's surplus, we gotta deposit in this area. So if we have this area here, we can hopefully keep it to a point where we don't have to elevate field 1 and 2, more than we would like to do it. So I think this is a nice repository, a good idea to actually lose some material and at the same time, develop more area for play,
right.
Yeah, now that is, of course, that the fill doesn't amount to more than what we're expecting.
Yeah.
So it could very well be that this is sort of a wild card in the whole plans, that maybe there's more fill that needs to be put in this area, and maybe this field maybe this doesn't end up being so flat, maybe it ends up being a mound. But
Yeah,
It's a great safety valve, it
We
really
need
is,
to
to know we have that.
caution, we need to caution people, I think in a couple of different ways here, and that there's a few variables that are tough for us to predict. One is the amount of fill that's gonna come from the construction site over to here, and so to be prudent, we need to have some areas that could vary. We can't guarantee that this is gonna work out, exactly as we're grading it, because the contractor may show up, with an extra dump truck or two, needing to lose it somewhere, and we can't take it off-site, and if we've got nowhere else to put it, because we've graded this so precisely, we'd be in a little bit of a bind. And the second is, some of this material is topsoil, which compresses when you, try to compact it, and it's not very precise either, so you don't know exactly what the final grade's gonna be, and in the areas where there's a lot of topsoil or organic material, it's not all good structural fill. Some of it is, but a lot of it's topsoil too, that we had to bring over.
Is that the soil that you will be taking then to fill in the current building site?
No, we wanna use good stuff there, the structural, so-called.
There's good
Or the
material,
field.
good material coming over here, and the good material coming over here, right now, our perception is the good material is gonna be used under those 2 good fields.
Right.
Because
That's
you want to,
the-
you want to have that stable enough to have a good field. We've
Okay.
always said that that third field is going to be on 10, 12 feet of
That's the
compressible
Right.
third
material.
sort of caution.
Right.
You know, we can try to keep this clean, in other words, meaning good structural fill.
Good structural fill.
Minimizing settlement.
Yeah.
But again, here, there's so much topsoil and organic material, even with some good, preventative geotextiles that we can add to the soil to help stabilize it. You're still gonna get what we would think of as, more settlement than you would like in a playing field. We won't have sinkholes, but it could still roll there, and you will have to do probably annual maintenance to level it out again.
Are you calling this the capping soil too?
The capping soil is gonna be all good, in that case, George. I mean, in other words, it would be, that only the top 6 inches would be topsoil, the other 12 inches would be good, gravel, well-graded
Clean,
material.
very clean, yeah.
material, over everything.
Yeah.
So everything's gonna get capped, but down below it here, there's gonna be a fair amount of organic stuff, and maybe here too.
I mean,
You know,
we've
if
always seen
that's
that,
the
we've always seen
variable
that
point.
third field. It's
So-
a nice grassy play field. That's how I've always seen that field, because of the amount of organics in that material.
So where are you storing what will be needed to fill in the current site, the current Pembroke?
Well, the contractor's storing some of it up there,
It's going over there now.
but remember, he owned creating that field anyways, before any
Right.
of the soil issue, arose. So that's his sort of means and methods.
Well, the only
We're not
reason I'm asking
telling
is,
him.
would that cleared site be a better choice because it's closer to the building, therefore allowing him to finish up that field sooner?
No, this is,
It's too small?
I mean, no, it's very nice and level, and it's a full-size soccer field. We wouldn't want to compromise that.
So what you're saying is, you don't have to put much fill there?
Right, there's
Okay.
not, they already own bringing in clean fill for that.
All right, I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
All
That's what
right.
I'm saying, that's part of the
That's
contract.
part of the contract,
So we don't want to
okay.
mess with that, I
No,
don't think.
no.
Right.
What was the decision on the light poles that are in there now?
Well,
Did
there was
you
an
get my
email from
emails?
the power
Yeah.
company said they would take
The
care of
power
it, yeah,
company
which is
seems
very
like
nice
they can
gesture,
take
yeah,
care of them.
Yeah, they're gonna
Because at
remove,
first
they're
they were
gonna
a
move them.
restriction. We wouldn't have been able to make these fields larger if we had to live with the existing light poles. They would have ended up in the field of play, or, at a great expense, been moved by the contractor and replaced. But apparently Georgetown Light Company, Light Department has agreed to take care of that for the GAA.
So not all of them.
They're very
have to be
accommodating.
together. We could probably try to save a few of them, if it works for the layout.
And you understand that we need to give them plenty of time, and there'll have to be some type
Yeah.
of coordination that,
Yeah. Yeah, another one of the problems that out there on these fields now is that it's just for surface runoff or drainage purposes. You do have some low points, even in some of the tree lines here, there's a low point, decent sized low point here, in between the tree line over here, where water is collecting, so that's another benefit of removing the trees and regrading the whole area, is that we can get surface runoff away from all these collection points that exist now, so.
Is that yellow line swales?
No,
Actually,
that's
just-
a
that was just to
walkway,
show the sidewalk,
Oh.
which we had before.
an accessible path to all these fields.
Yeah, but you take trees away and you're creating more water issues.
Well, that's part of what the design will implement, is just better drainage, swales, whether it be, surface, drainage or subsurface.
Well, what are you going to do to compensate for cutting those trees?
Take the trees out of the parking lot that they wanna plant there and plant them over in the.
What do you plan to do to compensate for the trees gone for the water issues? You're saying you're not gonna have any water issues? I don't-
After he does it,
no,
there
the
won't be, there's no water issues there now.
Yeah.
There's
And-
no more
and
water
after they
because the
take all
trees
that down, there
There's
won't be
no
any.
water issues there because, I'm telling you, it's because of the trees.
No,
So
there won't
when-
be any water issues when they're done. It'll be better than it is now.
Can I take that in writing?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we wanna do is create a low point somewhere in between the fields. Even if it's just for the fact of mosquitoes and bugs.
Right,
things
that's
like that.
right.
We don't wanna have water standing, and you do have that now. So, not in the tree area, that, clearly you don't have that, because that's a
Yeah,
very
I
steep
would
slope.
say no.
But by leveling it off, if we still have plenty of surface runoff on there,
It won't be flat, he'll have a crown to it.
yeah. It'll
Yeah,
be
Yeah,
slight-
there's
it'll
always a
water
surface
off.
slope.
It's just
but,
not gonna
yeah.
go the same way it goes. It's
Yeah.
it's gonna be slightly different, so. Eventually, it all ends up in the brook.
When people come to Georgetown, they won't think they're in Georgetown, cause the
I
fields will be
know.
nice.
Yeah,
Really shocked.
that would be wonderful. What does Luger say about all of this with the arsenic and you're moving all that over to the fields and
We're capping it.
calving it and all, what has he got to say about?
He's actually, he's,
environment.
he's fine. As long as we cap everything with the 1.5 where it's gonna be loam, where it's paving, we don't need the 1.5, where it's concrete, we don't need the 1.5. He's only interested in making sure we cap it all. The rest of it is obviously deferred over to Doug and the engineers. Yeah. What happens below that level is really the geotechnical engineers and Doug and so forth, because we gotta make sure it's in place, with the exception of the fact that you cannot compact the loam that's on field number 3, I'm gonna call it. That's the Wildcat, because that's gonna be whatever it's gonna
Further
be.
back there?
But the other
Yeah.
two will be done under a
Yes, sir.
controlled situation, so they're good fields, and that's the geotechnicians.
Yeah.
Jim he's interested in that top 1.5 and making sure that we have good dust control.
Yeah.
That's what Jim's involved with.
Yeah.
What are the sizes of the fields? I'm sorry I'm late, but
Yeah, no problem.
Can put your glasses in.
Well,
205.
oh, that's bigger than that one. That one's smaller. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, like we talked about at the end of the meeting, we tried to give them what they wanted. And, even at the meeting, I think I threw on the scale on the plan and I said, the 225 that they were really
Right.
looking for, we wouldn't get, but we got as close as we could at this point anyways at 205,
Okay.
which gives you 165 foot here.
So that the left one's a minor league-ish, and the next one is a peewee. Is
Yeah.
the
As we
Yeah.
said,
Get away.
the 205 really is just at the foul line, Jeff.
Yeah.
You could, be a 225 in
Right.
right center, left center, center field.
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
have no limitations in here. to
Right.
In
distance,
existence,
kind of a fence.
165. So,
Same thing with this field, as long as nobody's here, this field is actually quite a bit.
Right.
Right.
If they use those snow fences, they could probably even move them if they needed to.
yeah,
Right,
portable
right.
fences.
And they did talk about that, and I think
Right.
that's, that's a nice thing, and that's one of the things they said that they would like to do is have no overlap of the two fields, so if they did
So they
put a fence,
could.
they actually could have the two games going on
Right.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they did talk about, and we had proposed a smaller field or smaller grass area, was over the proposed new septic field.
Right.
It happens to work out grading wise, just the way it was proposed, that it would drain very well for an athletic field, whether it's soccer field, lacrosse. And we were able to stretch it out to the size, the minimum size that they wanted for the width anyways was 110, so.
Yeah.
And you were able to get that?
That would be
That's great.
that would be the size of a U10 field,
Yeah,
or lacrosse minor,
lacrosse.
Smaller
Big
field.
lacrosse field.
No, that's great.
Now, Doug, were you planning on putting in a lead-type irrigation system in those?
Well, there is a proposal to, obviously this field's proposal is to put in irrigation system. A lot of that question depends on the well situation, what actually is derived from the well or wells.
We
And-
made a
and the-
suggestion, that we do a boring out there ASAP, to go down and grab some of the water and see what we get down there for water. To make sure we're not, drawing water up and having a situation where we're taking water that's got some arsenic in it and sprinkling on a field that's already been cleaned up. So we'd like to see some samples drawn ASAP.
But they haven't found any arsenic in the groundwater.
We haven't found it, no, we haven't done it, but I mean, it'd be a good idea to check it before we go down and start spending a lot of money on wells and everything else, you
Right.
know?
how close are the wetlands to like the field that the leach field's going in, or that softball field that says 175?
Well, there's the 100-foot buffer zone.
I mean, that you can visually see water.
Oh,
From the
well,
swamps
it's
down
way
the
down the
bottom?
bottom of the hill there, so.
Yeah,
uh,
it's
Could-
probably,
Could we
It's
test
100
that
feet
water
away.
too?
That's where we're
Test
getting
that
it
water?
from.
Yeah.
well, we're talking about the water we'd be drawing
Oh, I
for the
know, I know.
well.
wells, yeah.
But, I mean, if you test that ground or the surface water, and you can put a pump in there and pump and water the sprinklers through that, and just put a
Oh,
pump at the bottom of
oh.
the hill.
Well, I think that would be, that would have to go before the Conservation Commission, honestly, because
I
I wouldn't
don't-
wanna draw down the water, cause that could
I
impact.
don't
the-
think it has to go, because I know
Wetlands.
you can pump out of like Pentucket Pond or Rock Pond.
It really just imagine, it's all about recharge, if that area recharges quickly enough that you can draw out a certain amount of water, then yeah, you can do it, but if it doesn't, and you're actually lowering the level of the water there, then you're changing you're changing the overall structure of the wetland itself, and that, yeah,
Get you in trouble.
you wouldn't wanna do that.
I think that you're gonna lose more water on a hot day than you're gonna pump out of there to water the fields.
I mean, through evaporation?
Exactly.
So, on the larger field, that's where the school currently is, we did talk about the baseball field and how it's, would not have the mound. That would have to be a.
Portable.
Yeah,
Portable
portable
mound.
mound, so.
Yeah.
And that was at the first meeting,
Right.
a request of theirs
Right.
to have that.
That's the Pony League size field.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So honestly, it's not a big change from what we were showing anyways, other than really just the trees being removed. The walks are all very similar to what we had. The field sizes and the open areas for play are staying very similar. And as I think Carl pointed out, one of the biggest things about all of this is just, what is the actual final grade gonna be here? Even here, with all the
What
material
is that
on
supposed to
site.
be in the middle? Is that just a play area or something?
Just an open area. for
Practice
play.
area.
Yeah.
So you're gonna try to make those 3 fields the same level?
Yeah, I mean, they have crowns and all, they're
Yeah.
not dead level, but yeah.
But like we talked about before, if you have a little bit too much, that it gets spread over everything.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have a little too little, then you scrape it over, so on and so forth, so.
Yeah, and Carl mentioned, the finished product may look very different from this, at least from a grading standpoint on
Right.
the surface.
Right.
I think the layout's what you see here is essentially what it's gonna look like.
And the 205 field, was that moved back closer? Okay, good.
Yeah, we pushed it in as close as we could.
Okay. Okay.
So we'll have a backstop with a hood on it to protect the parked cars.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think too, if everything does work out this way and the fields end up located, it's very similar to what we're showing now. There is the issue, a little bit of safety issue here with foul balls crossing into each of those fields, so we
Right.
might wanna consider some safety netting in between there, which might actually work well with the new utility poles if they could be put in such a way, we could put a temporary fence that could be pulled down in the wintertime. So the expense of that would be far less than actually getting something that's a manufactured safety system.
I've always thought the baseball field at the high school should have one along third base,
For where?
or along third base,
Oh.
because they lose so many balls that
Yeah,
way.
you see them, you're starting to see
I
them
think
everywhere
they're a
now.
great idea.
They are,
Yeah.
very
So when
useful.
would there be accessibility to all of that? Would that be at the same time as the school is torn down, all the field redone at the same time, or is there a staggered?
Well, that's a good
plan
point.
going on together?
I guess that, that would really come down to the
Start early.
contract.
Yeah, it could start early.
Those are closing.
We need to get pricing on it and get that agreed to, and then two, we need to get Conservation Commission's agreement on it too. But once those two things are in place, since the fields are out of commission now, and if the contractor can arrange, a safe means to get on there, segregated from the school, it seems like work could start pretty much any time, Carol,
Yeah.
and be segregated from the school operations.
I think
In some
one
of the
hopes
discussions,
too- Sorry.
I was gonna say, no, some of the discussions with Brink, we've actually talked about that, and if everything, all the stars are in the right alignment, and he gets started on that right away, and the pricing was okay, and we could move the dirt, his idea was to try and move all of his dirt out of there by this coming April, to move it all out. That would mean
Off of
that,
Field 3?
yeah, over to all these 3 fields, and that would mean that if we get all the configuration done there in those areas, we gotta work on the septic and so forth, theoretically, you can get the loam down, you get it seeded by June, so that a year from then it'd be usable if you were seeding. That's probably an overly aggressive situation, something will probably happen to somehow disturb that schedule with its pricing or whatever, and you'd probably be looking at really the fall, so it'd be a year from this fall that you'd be able to use it,
So I
unless
think-
you sodded it.
So I
which is
think
another
that
story.
the question the school has right now, obviously we've got kids playing in the circle, parking circle. So the fields is one thing, but the playground area is another. So I'm sure there's conversation going on that I've just not heard about as to, what's the plan for, I know the septic thing is gonna get done and then the kids could probably play there if there was grass planted. But is that something that is likely to be available next fall? There's just a lot of anxiety around,
That could
What's
certainly be
gonna
ready for fall, don't you think?
The-
Over the septic area?
This coming fall?
Over the septic area,
Well, again,
where the kids- where
even if
the
they get it
kids
in,
would
you
have
wanna let it
access to the
grow.
playground.
Yeah, you need a year of growing
Uh,
before you really want to get on it, unless
We'd
you
have
do
to
sod.
consider upgrading that to sod, in
And
order
that
to
would
get
have
it
to
to
be
take quick enough.
Water or maintained.
Well, that's, there's a good thought about the sod. I mean, you could just.
You
pick
could
an
limit
area
it to the
and
110
sod.
by
Sure.
25.
Yeah.
The leaching field area,
Right.
if they were to
Get it
start on that
online as
early.
fast as you
Yeah.
can. I think one of the other thoughts way back when we thought about filling this area was that by doing that, it does give you the opportunity to maybe get these fields online
Sure.
sooner.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Let this field sort of
that's what I was wondering.
come on at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
But, I think a good idea, and it's, obviously a very good, strong consideration, especially with the existing school still in place, is that having a nice, clean
Sure.
grass play area.
And that's gonna be easy with Braid, because what we're doing is we're looking at it as a base number and then putting together an à la carte list. Sod for a
Yeah.
particular area, irrigation on 2 fields, 3 fields, whatever you want. So you can do it so that you can actually have a base number and then kind of look at the numbers for the other amenities and decide what what this group wants to do, what some of the town bodies might want to do. It'll be a whole list of items, so you can pick and choose and go from there.
And there is still the existing paved
Yeah.
area over here with the basketball hoops, and I think
Yeah.
there's one piece of equipment or
Yeah,
two
there is,
over there.
yeah, I think there's one piece of equipment over there.
So those aren't being touched,
No,
so they'll still all be still usable.
yeah, I would just, put in the 2 cents, if that's what it is, to
Yeah.
have for the fall, a play area in place,
Mhm.
because what we're doing now is okay temporarily, but even we're gonna struggle to get through the year. And if they think that we might have to deal with a whole year of, another year of it really, I think it's just an extraordinary hardship
Yeah.
for the school.
Are they able to do any trail walking?
Well, that's possible, Tilly, but, that's when the weather's nicer. I mean, right now, the only, because they haven't had access to any of the fields at all. They really gotta play in that play circle.
Yeah.
And as I said, temporarily,
Yeah.
no problem.
Right.
We're dealing with what we have to deal with, but just if it's possible to figure out a way,
It might
that's
be an ideal
reasonably
time
cost-
to extend that, the science to do the walking and
Right.
to create more outdoor
Right.
activities in that line.
Yeah.
Even if you needed assistance with the Eagle Scout to get
Right.
busy on the trail.
Right.
That
Well,
would
it's
be a
hard
wonderful
because
thing.
The trail that currently exists, that, goes right through the construction site, so,
Yeah, I
you
understand
know,
that.
yeah.
But there's a lot of trails that go from there all the way over to the state forest.
I think it's a great idea, Tilly. I mean, kids usually have 10 minutes of recess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a 10 or 15-minute window, but,
Yeah, just to
as
get
I
fresh
said,
air.
we're working with,
Burn off some
understand the
energy.
circumstances.
Yeah.
But if we
Yeah.
could put a plea, so to speak, in for, some discussion about a creative plan so that we have access in the fall, that would be outstanding.
The existing paved area that you just talked about, the basketball stuff, what level is that elevation-wise relative to the 110 by 125 field?
It's down at that area,
Is that same level?
that level,
Okay.
yeah.
Was that septic the same one that you brought to the conservation?
Yes.
So that
The
hasn't
the
changed?
grading on it is changed just slightly, but the field itself is the same, yeah, underneath it.
When do they plan on doing the leach field?
They're still working on that, because, they had this idea about going behind the school as opposed to going around the front the way it's currently in the contract documents. Only the credit was fairly minimal compared
Wasn't
to,
enough to offset the redesign.
we need to redesign and go back to the Board of Health a little bit, because it's a shorter route, the pumps might change, the elevation of the leaching field, the pitch of it rather
Where you
would
went to the
change.
field's
and
different now, it pitches a different way, so.
So, there was a little bit of engineering there, and
Shift to consider.
and the credit they offered wasn't really significant. But they may still proceed on doing the leach field, because right now they're pumping, the school. And if they get the new leach field in, they could connect to it and save the expense of pumping.
Pumping once a week, I think, aren't they?
Right now,
think
their
so.
focus really has been getting
Is
the
it once a week,
foundation
Chuck?
done. They've talked about the
than
possibility
that?
of doing the whole leaching field this coming summer. But I think once they get through this and the steel starts to go up, they really start giving some consideration
Yeah.
to attacking the new leach field. They get rid of the pumping. But that's in their court right now.
So you'll think about some more options possibly for Carol?
Well, like we
Based on what
said,
Carol
as Pat said, when we give this for pricing, we would ask for those options
Yeah.
of sod, of irrigation, of.
But even some
backstops.
creative areas, if none of that works, you know, I don't know if that mound, if taking the trees down and just doing that one area is a possibility, you know what I'm saying? Give it a little more thought and see if you can come up with other locations that might work.
I think you should probably see if we can move it along on the septic.
Right,
with
right.
them, because that's where you want to get going.
That's the
So
biggest
If
area.
you could get that,
Yeah.
them going on that so that it's completed this spring.
And they've indicated that they want it, they'd like to do that,
Yeah,
yeah.
completed this spring, then you'd have a fighting chance to get grass
Because
onto
if the
that.
kids
That's
can't be
gonna
out there
take.
now, they could be out there as soon as they get the site work and when they start loading steel, they're not gonna be doing much site work around the building.
Right.
So they could be over there
yeah.
doing the septic, cause I think before they had to wait till summer, now they don't have to wait till summer, cause the kids can't be out there.
Right, right.
I guess the one thing about with sod, especially in a fairly decent sized area, is that typically you would absolutely require it to be irrigated. So, it's a lot of money to put out there without an irrigation system. So, especially if it's being done in the June, for instance, and then you've got the summer months and you got sod out there, if it's not getting watered every day, twice a day, it'll die. And you're gonna lose that.
Yeah, that's
what
a
I'm
waste
saying.
of
That's
money.
what I was saying, you need to get it going for the springtime before the hot
Yeah.
season comes.
No.
And,
But even
and,
then,
and your
you still
point on
wanna irrigate
irrigation
it.
is a good one for that too, so.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have an irrigation system, you wanna have something foolproof that's out there that you could, you know,
There's
that
not
would
too
be
many
used
foolproof
daily.
things around, so.
Doug, can you explain again the irrigation system? My understanding was that the new irrigation system now will, a type of conservation irrigation system, with a control panel for, individual heads if you need to, sprinkler heads, was gonna be used for the, proposed field where the Pembroke's being taken out.
Yep.
And I was told that, since this is now part of the job, that a conservation lead type irrigation system was gonna put it in over all the fields, regardless of whether the pumps can handle it or not, maybe.
Well, I think they would like to do that. I mean,
Who's-
that was
who's
definitely
that?
one of the,
The GAA.
yeah. I mean, they certainly would like to have that, except for that lower field, the softball field. With the settlement, we wouldn't recommend putting irrigation system in there at all.
Right.
But otherwise, you couldn't put an irrigation system underneath the field over the leaching field because you'd be penetrating into the soil above that, so you need that separation there, so that field can't be irrigated. So really, the only two additional fields that we'd be talking about are the two baseball fields to be irrigated.
Why can't the 110 by 125 be irrigated?
The 110 by what?
Leaching
I
field.
just said the
The leaching field?
Yeah.
The leaching field.
You can't, I don't, you
You're not
sit
gonna
the
irrigate
pipes
it.
into the
With the,
soil there. I don't think you can put pipes or underground system above a leaching field like that.
So it would have to be like a water cannon?
Yeah.
Where are the pipes going for water to
So-
the backfields?
Right now, we have
There.
proposal in the contract to drill 2 wells. You know, we located one here and one over here, just to give us, 2 options of hitting water on the ground. And then, the only part that's irrigated right now in the contract is this field. Connected, the pumps would be right here, there's a concrete pad, and the power is being brought right to that point.
it'll be like a computer panel too?
Right, the
Oh, yeah.
control panel would be right there, the rain sensors and things. And then as part of the Conservation Commission order of condition, they asked us to tie in any irrigation that's over here to any new wells.
Uh-huh.
So, because we're gonna be redoing this field, the existing irrigation is gonna have to be replaced. It would be part of the upgrade, but these are the 2 fields that would be proposed to be irrigated. And again, if the water works for us, then we would connect them all to the well. If
So-
it doesn't, then we'd have to rethink and, connect back to domestic or not, or what.
So you'd want those sprinkler heads be on the same control panel, I would think.
Yes, yeah, and again, the flow may be such that, you have to do a very small area at a
You're
time.
gonna have to stagger it in one.
And stagger it, across the whole site, depending on what the flow is.
Now, I'm a little confused, because I thought you just said that if we put sod in, we have to consider an irrigation system, but now you're saying that you can't put one on that small
Water
field.
Well, I'm just saying,
So it'd
you know,
just
it
be
has to
water
be
cannons?
irrigated. Yeah. I'm just saying typically, when you
Typically.
put sod down, you need an irrigation system.
To-
Here,
To guarantee that
you need
it'll
to-
survive,
you need to water it.
right.
So, however you're gonna do it.
Gotta make it some Eagle Scout project to make sure that on his honor, he does his best to water it every day
Bring
during
the
the
fire
summer.
truck up.
It's just a safeguard, cause it's a large investment for sod. You don't wanna lose it.
Let the
so.
firemen practice on the field.
Do you think, or are you saying that you only need to keep it watered until it actually takes, or permanently, just until it really?
Till it takes.
Okay,
About
know,
a
might just
year.
be a couple a
And it
season.
becomes regular grass. you know.
Okay,
Right,
But
and
they
I have
still gotta take
seen
care
over
of it.
Yeah.
some of the septic fields, it tends to be a
very
very.
if they
Yes.
flourish, yes.
So-
That's why I was a little curious.
I would still recommend that it be watered, on a regular
Definitely.
basis, but not, once it's established, it's
Alright.
usually a good bet that it'll survive.
You have a water ban in town normally?
Yes.
So if the
It's-
wells don't work out and you're gonna go domestic, you may end up with
I
an
think there's
irrigation
exempt-
system
there's
that you can't
exemptions
use.
for,
It's a water bed if it's municipal water.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if the
Right,
wells
if we
don't
have
work out,
to.
then you'll
It's
be
through the
tying it,
blasting.
yeah, you'll be tying it to the domestic, yeah.
They're gonna test as soon as they can.
Will you test the swamp water, or the water that's behind on the hill?
We weren't planning to.
No.
Because I know in Boxford, there's 3 fields. There's the Spofford School, and there's the field that used to be the old dump, that they all water from one well that's real close to the wetlands. And
You think it's
Plenty
a
of
shallow well?
I know it's 20, maybe 30-foot gravel pack well.
Oh.
And it's got a ton of water, and it's never gone dry. And it goes uphill, a lot more than it would go uphill there. And it
Well,
goes all the way over to the Spofford
We
School.
definitely want to talk to our irrigation consultant, who's sort of also the well expert, to figure out, how quick can we get some thoughts on, on testing, the water quality. Do we actually need to drill the well the full depth? What about other alternatives of getting shallow wells? So we definitely want to talk to them right away.
I think the sooner the better, so we can all know what
Yeah.
pricing and get,
Right,
yeah.
right.
We can work with Green Seal to do a test, just a boring test well, without having to dig a well.
No, I think a boring.
Yeah,
is-
but we
yeah,
want to
yeah,
ask
yeah, yeah.
the irrigation consultant, though, if that's going
Yeah.
to be adequate, water source.
That's what we're
Yeah.
saying, just advance that idea of just doing
Right.
boring, and then taking some
Right.
samples when we get down. It's a lot cheaper than doing a whole full-blown.
Right.
I know that
cases.
there's water samples taken at the highway department, and I don't know how deep those wells are, but I know that they come in.
They have
quarterly.
observation wells
Yeah.
because of contamination.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it's contaminated, but
Mhm.
it used to be a,
Who tests those wells, Pete?
who does? I'm not sure, but I could find out. The Board of Health has it done because of the dump, so.
Isn't that because of the salt water in Foxford? Isn't that where the
No, I'm talking Georgetown.
In Georgetown.
Georgetown? Okay.
All right. So I think at this point, does anyone have any other questions? I think Carl would like us to just take a vote, allowing them to just proceed with the plans as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Doug. I think you really captured everything that was conveyed at the meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I had one question. I understand it appears we don't have to go to Concom with the arrangements we're doing here, or do we?
No,
we do.
We should.
We do,
We do.
okay,
Yeah,
all right.
and I think that's the next.
Again, whether we technically have to or not, that we've made a promise
Okay,
to do it.
so,
we
all right, I just
should.
wanna make sure that, okay. good.
All right, so that was actually the next item on the agenda.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about Concom? Have you set up a meeting time?
We haven't
haven't done
targeted,
anything,
because
but
we need
you
to
are
file
going
a set
to.
of drawings in order
Okay.
to get on the agenda here. Now that we're close, we'll aim
March
for a
6th
date.
tentative, all right,
Yeah.
That's our goal anyway.
okay.
We have walked the site with Steve
Okay.
Kuczynski.
And so he has an idea of what you're looking
So he
at here.
understands, yeah.
All right.
We gave him that preliminary grading plan
Yes.
already, so he distributed that to the commission members.
Right.
We haven't gotten any feedback from them,
This green
so.
All right. Yes.
Doug, what kind of
Earlier
planting,
one, preliminary.
This is into their jurisdiction.
what kind of planting plan do you have to hold that slope in behind the
We would use a similar mix that we're using on some of the other steeper slopes off the road here. This is a woodland mix that's a strong stabilized.
How long does it take to hold?
How long does it take?
I mean, how long will it take before it starts being able to hold the slope?
It's the
in?
growth
The
rate.
They could use a jute mat and it would be, you know, basically
Well,
right
like you
away.
did down at Bailey Lane?
And it's seeded already and
Yeah. I mean, the contractor will stabilize it. I mean, that's the thing. Growth rate just depends weather-wise.
Is it 2 to 1, you said? Or 3?
2.5 to 1.
2.5 to 1, slope.
Pretty steep.
I'm sure the weeds in the area will fill in quick too.
Well, that's the
I
nice
mean,
thing about the weed.
it's
the-
not meant
That's
to be
something, that's
mowed.
something the Concom's gonna be,
Yeah.
you know, concerned about, the
Oh,
bank
yeah.
is stable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've presented them the seed mixes that we're using in some of their other areas, so they're fine with those. It's a good woodland blend. So if you maintain it, you're going to get more grasses. If you don't maintain it, you're going to get more of a woodland planting scenario. So
And then how about during severe storms, do you see any more runoff coming into that retention pond, or is that,
not from these fields.
so that's an adequate size? We're expanding on that anyhow, and
We're regrading that detention pond anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
there's no grading plan for that.
are we taking, there's tree growth inside the retention pond now, are we removing all those, or is that something that used to stabilize, or we can put riprap inside the?
It's it's doubling, if not tripling in
Yeah.
size from what's out there now. So I'm going to guess that all that stuff is going to be
Yeah,
removed.
it's all coming out, I think, because it's all getting regraded, George.
So do they put stone in there now, or
In the
hold
very,
the banks
in the
now?
very bottom of it, not for the sides. No,
No.
the sides are shallow enough that there's no additional riprap needed to stabilize it.
We are showing some plantings where the pipes are coming in because water comes.
Yeah.
There's water coming off here that goes into like a bioretention area, and then it goes underneath the road and then into this area, and it continues up here as well. This all comes this way, but there is some plantings at the corners just to hide some of the structures that'll be out there. I think the plan that we proposed to Concom was to put a conservation seed mix in the basin. So again, you'll get a combination of plants and grasses. And that
Wildflowers.
Typically, yeah.
Well, we
typically
don't want
stabilizes.
trees growing in there, right?
No, no, I mean, over time, it will, for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
You know what, we're gonna back up and approve the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to review. The first one is from December 9th.
Need to go?
Yeah, Doug, thank you.
Want to keep the board?
Sure. Could we? 'Cause we might use it
The-
for future meetings.
The Pembroke, December 9th for Pembroke.
Good seeing you.
Would anyone care to make a motion to accept the minutes from December 9th, 2013?
Second.
Any discussion? I think, the only question I had was actually the progress on something. Jim had asked how, if, one of the, was it Brait? No, GS's percentage of work completed each month. Will they be putting it in their final, or will you be putting, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Do you remember
and
asking?
I think the
Well, is
answer
it-
was that they're working on it and that we will have it.
You were gonna
very
be
soon.
submitting it monthly?
Cash flow.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're working on now. We wanna
Yes,
get
we're working on the cash flow.
All
Once
right.
they get the 3011 done, we'll have a cost of the base contract, and then we'll just do a cash flow.
All right, cash flow.
So
You know
then
what
we'll
these
use the
initials-
cash flow to figure
All right.
out whether or not they're on target, I
I
guess.
couldn't remember that
It's
word,
done.
cash.
It's done, the cash flow's already done, it's been submitted to the town. We're working with the town, and the town's
There you go.
using
Oh,
it as a.
all right,
as
so
a
we can
borrowing.
get it from Mike.
So I have it, and I've included it in the monthly reports.
Perfect.
I'll include it each time we review the contractor's invoices. We review it the first meeting of the month, we've been meeting the second meeting because of the special issues that we're facing now. But in the future, when you only meet the second week of every month,
We'll get it then.
include it in the monthly report, and cash flow will show you a trend and how we're doing against that cash flow. And anytime we think it's starting to edge off it, we sit with the town again so that they have an accurate projection.
All right,
So I update it every few months as need be.
That was my only question. Okay, anyone else? All in favor? Aye.
One
Opposed? One abstained. Motion carries. And the other set is from January 14th,
2014.
2014. There were quite a few on here. Would anyone care to make a motion to accept the minutes from January 14th, 2014?
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? Did everyone get a chance to look? I didn't have any questions. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? One abstention? Motion carries. All right, a reminder that the groundbreaking ceremony is February 11th at 4 o'clock at Pembroke. And our school building committee meeting will be following approximately 5:30 afterwards at Pembroke, yeah.
You have to check posting that, make sure Michelle.
Michelle posted it that way,
Okay.
yes. All right, then, anything else? Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Good seeing you.
Getting